Okay, can people hear me? You have to unmute your mic to answer that. All right, I didn't hear anything, so I'm going to assume you cannot hear me. I will try and work on that.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Great. Where's my summer 2022? I don't see that. Okay, are there any questions? If not, let's go ahead and get started. All right, now you should be hearing me better. And let me share my screen. I should be able to see my screen now. Let's begin, not with here, but with the class. If you go to Clark College, there will be a link to Canvas. We do have a Canvas class. You gotta log in. There we go. Can you see this? It's trying to log into Canvas.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then I thought I moved that to the very top. Oh, there it is. Click on that, and that's our course. You'll see some links over here to the left side. They're not terribly important until later in the term, but you look at your grades by clicking on grades. The modules and the home's the same thing. It's showing you the different modules. The other links I'm not going to talk about. But if you come on here, we have the class. There's the syllabus. I'll talk about that in a minute. I've got a note here for you to read for student and technical help. So if you need any help, click on that link. My YouTube site. If you are attending all of the Zoom sessions, you don't need the YouTube site. But if you miss a Zoom session, or for some reason you're working during the Zoom session, I have, or I will try to record everything and then put it on my YouTube website so that attendance is recommended, but it is not required. You do need to view the recording, but you can do that later. And you should obviously review the recording before a quiz. A note about Zoom. Most of you are probably familiar with Zoom. And then this is the invite that I emailed you last night for attending the Zoom. And since you're all here, I assume you got that and you figured out how to log into Zoom. There's something you might want to read for the multiple choice quizzes, they will be online, but you have to use the lockdown browser. There's a name for that. What's the name for that browser? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on what the name for that browser is. Maybe Respondus lockdown browser. Yeah, Respondus lockdown browser. So you need to download the Respondus lockdown browser software in order to run the multiple choice quizzes. And I have it set up so it should work. I think it's on iPads. But if you're viewing the course only over the phone, you're going to have a hard time taking the quizzes. I'm not even sure you will be able to take the quizzes, but anyways, you can read about the lockdown browser requirement. I'm encouraging you to download it early and then use the lockdown browser to take the extra credit quizzes. And if it works for you, you'll then be set up. If it doesn't work, then you need to come back here and click on the link for student and technical help and get the computer help desk. I forget what they call it, but there's a computer help for students, and they have been able to get the lockdown browser to work on everybody's computer that I've ever taught with. And usually the lockdown browser, when you download it, it does work. But every other term, not every term, but every other term, there is one student where when they get the lockdown browser, it doesn't work on their system, their computer, and the help desk is very good at getting the lockdown browser up and running. I once had a student who all she did was she deleted it and then downloaded it again. It didn't work. She deleted it and downloaded it again. She did this 5 times, and then she complained to me that it wasn't working. And I told her, I'm sorry about that. I can't help you with getting it working on your system, but please contact the computer help desk. They are very good at running it on your system. Usually what happens is that the setting that the student has on their computer isn't working with the lockdown browser, and they need to change the settings. So it's as simple as a problem like that. But so far, I've gotten the lockdown browser to work on everybody's computer, and only one student every other term has problems with it running on their system. So try and get it set up before you do the first mandatory quiz, because if you run into this problem of getting it running, it takes time to get it set up. So download it early and then you'll have the time. Some information for students and physicians, because we're going to be taking the class online, including the microbiology lab. This isn't terribly much importance to you because you will only be exposed to the computer or the internet. If you don't have the textbook, I've got the first couple of chapters. I think it's the first 3 chapters. A link to that here. And I have the summaries for all the chapters under this link. Oops, too far. You do have assignment due on the first week. Because this is summer term, I think you even have a couple of assignments that are due in the first week. But the major one is the plagiarism tutorial and then the plagiarism quiz. You must take the plagiarism tutorial and finish it by July 9th, and then take the plagiarism quiz and finish that by July 9th. I think that's this Saturday. And there's a class guide on APA citation guide. The plagiarism tutorial will teach you how to use information that you got from another source, put it in quotes, and then say who you got it from, meaning cite it, and it'll tell you how to do the citations. And then you must take the plagiarism quiz and get 100% on that quiz. If you don't get 100% on the quiz, you'll get 0 points on a big assignment, the infectious disease project, which is worth 100 points. So you must get 20 out of 20 on the plagiarism quiz. Otherwise, you'll get 0 on the infectious disease project. Any questions about any of that? Okay. Let me state that this is extremely important. Learning about how to cite your sources, how to give references, and there's a difference between an in-text citation. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Where do I talk about that when I talk about the assignment? One of the two. And an in-text citation, and then the main references, meaning the main citations at the end. And you do them differently. And you need to learn how to not do plagiarism, because plagiarism is an extremely important topic. And it's not just for school, it's extremely important topic in school too. But how important is plagiarism? There once was a sitting senator who was a senator when I was teaching microbiology. And somebody discovered that when he was in graduate school, he plagiarized somebody else's work. And this senator had to resign his position, and he never could run for the Senate office. I'm talking about a United States senator. So plagiarism is really important. Do not plagiarize. If you do, you may get a 0 on that assignment. And the plagiarism tutorial will tell you what you can do and what you cannot, and then how you can use the information, put it in quotes, and then cite where you got it from. Any questions about any of that? All right, after all that, we then have the module for week 1 lecture. I have up here the study guide and the notes. Let's go into that. The objectives, which are in the top part of the notes, well, what you'll be tested on. So if you're studying for a quiz, sorry, this isn't showing very well. How the heck do I get that? There we go. All the questions from the quizzes and the final will be in the objectives. So if you want to study, look at what the objectives are and then try and answer the questions. If you can't, look that information up. That's the best way to study for the quizzes. And another way, of course, to study for the quizzes is to write notes and then review your notes. And then after the, where do I have it? There it is. After the objectives, I have the chapter 1 notes, which gives you the similar information that I'm going to give you in the lecture, but this will be in a sentence format. Very few pictures on the chapter 1 notes. Any question about any of that? Okay, so all of the chapter notes are on there. All of the objectives are in here. And that's for all of the lessons. let's go back to the module. The worksheet for the lecture for each lesson will have at least one worksheet, and it's only worth 2 points. When you do the worksheet, it will ask a question. Please take the questions in the order they're given. And generally, you will only be answering 1 or 2 questions. So what you do is you come down here and you'll reply to that. You go 1, and it's best to cut and paste the question and then give your answer to it. And then the next student who comes around will cut and paste question 2 and then answer question 2. And so you'll only be answering 1 or 2 questions for each worksheet, for each lecture. For this one, you're only going to answer 1 question. Okay. And so it's a very easy assignment for 2 points. And the goal is that each person will answer a question, and then you can fill in the answers with the other students' answer, and then use this for studying or learning the information. Okay. Now, some students, not very many, but every once in a while I get one complaining, I wish you would assign the entire questions. You can do all of the questions. Okay. Just don't put all the answers in. Just record which question you're answering for the points. But you can answer all of the questions, and then you can look at your answers for what the students give. Okay. If at the very end, like this one only has 13 questions, and you would like to answer a question and all the questions have been answered, just try and answer a question that you think a student answered wrong. Like, you think the domain eukarya has what cell type? And if the student answered prokaryotes, and you say, I think that's wrong, so I'm going to take question 12 and I'm going to answer it. The domain eukarya has the cell type eukaryotes. Okay. If all of the answers are correct, just go to the first question again and answer that question. Okay. And then the next student, if all the questions are answered, I'll just take question number 2. Okay. But try and correct an answer that is incorrect if you know it's incorrect. And when I will go through and grade this, I will only grade the incorrect, or not grade, make corrections to the incorrect answers. Okay. Any question about any of that?
Are we assigned a question or do we just pick one?
No, you just take whichever question is the next one. And so let's say you're coming along and question 1, 2, 3, and 4 have been already answered. Then you take question 5. Okay. If you don't like question 5, don't skip it. What you do is you just come back at a later time and some other student will answer question 5 and maybe question 6. And then the next one that's available is question 7. So you answer question 7. Now, after you post your answers, make sure that somebody hasn't posted the question that you just posted your answer to. Okay, so if 2 students post the answer to question number 7, only the first student will get credit. So if you take time answering your question and somebody beats you to it, you need to then go and answer the next question if you want credit. Any question about any of that? So after you post your answer, always look at it to make sure that your answer is the next question to be answered. Because if somebody beats you, you're not going to get credit. Any questions about any of that? All right. So please follow the questions in the order of the worksheet. If you just pick any question you want, you're going to get a deduction. Okay. And the reason for that is I had students answering number 12, and we were on question number 1, and then students did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then when they get to 11 and 12, they don't know 12's already been answered. Okay, so you have to order the questions in the correct order. Otherwise, it's very difficult to figure out which questions have been answered and which have not been answered. All right, let's move on. Oh, there are some extra credit assignments. You can send me an extra credit picture. That has to be turned in by July 16th. I think that's week 2. It tells you what to do. To do that, I want a picture of your face. No one's ever going to see it. I'll put the picture in my grade book. And then when I'm adding the grades, I'll see your smiling face. And then I'll associate your face with your name. And that's the best tool I've found for learning students' names. I want to learn your names, but I'm not very good about learning names. And if I see your face by your name, I will learn your names. And that's for 3 points, extra credit points. There's another extra credit assignment. Oops, I'm not getting it. There it is, the extra credit study sheet. It is a worksheet. You can click on it here to get it. It's a spreadsheet from Microsoft Excel. And if you open it, let's go ahead and open it. The first worksheet page will show you your schedule. So write in what you're going to be doing, like maybe 7 a.m. you're sleeping on Monday morning, okay? And you get up at 9 a.m., you get dressed, you have breakfast, and then at 10 a.m., I don't know, you walk the dog. You don't have to mention things like that, but and then at 11 a.m. you go to work, and then you come home, let's say at 7 p.m. You make dinner from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. you study, and you can just write study in there. So on this one, I want your schedule. If you want to be generic, you can. I just need to compare your schedule with the next page of the worksheet, which is your time that you plan to study for week 1. And let's say you're planning to study from, I don't know, 9 to 11 p.m. Then put that in, micro study time, okay? And then on Tuesday, you're studying at another time. Let's say you're studying from 12 to 2, and then do that for all of the other days of the week for week 1. If you have a different study time for week 2, put it on the second sheet, okay? And if each week is different, put it on for week 3, okay? So on these sheets, all you have is the time you're planning to study for microbiology. On the first page, you put your entire schedule, okay? And I will check to make sure the time you're studying, you actually have time to do it on your schedule. All right, any question about any of that? Submit that. There will be a link up here on this side or at the bottom. I won't have it because I'm a teacher. I have the grader.
Do you want us to do all of the weeks at once, or would
Well,
you?
if you only plan to have the same study schedule for week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then you only need to fill out 2, what do you call these, tabs, worksheets, whatever you call them. One for the general, your general schedule, and then one for your study schedule, and state that you're going to use this for weeks 1 through week 8. Okay. Now, if you have week 1 different than week 2, put week 2 here. And if week 2 and week 3 are going to be the same, put week 2 and 3 here. And then if week 4 is different, make another one. And put 4 through 8 here, whatever. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And how many points is that worth? I think this is worth, 6 points. I've got it in there that this is emailed to you. It's not emailed to you. Let me correct that. You need to come to the class and get it. So let me delete that. And that was from last summer. All right, and then after that, I've got the week 1 lab. We'll talk about that when we have the lab session later today. And then week 2 lecture, and it follows the same format, the study guide, the notes. We'll talk about that next week. And then the worksheet for lecture 2. And then the link for practice quiz 1A and the link for practice quiz 1B. Practice quiz 1B has multiple choice questions, and you have to use Respondus Lockdown Browser to take this practice quiz. On practice quiz 1A, they are fill in the blank and essay questions. You do not need Respondus Lockdown Browser for the quiz A. That'd be 1A and quiz 2A, etc. You should take these practice quizzes because they will give you an example of my quizzes. And I do give you a quiz with short answer or essay questions, which will be a quiz, a number, and then an A. And then the multiple choice questions, which will be a quiz with a number and then a B. And all of these multiple choice questions require Respondus Lockdown Browser. All of the multiple choice questions are also timed, meaning when you start the quiz, you only have so long to finish the quiz. And generally I give you a minute for each question and then a few extra minutes for the quiz. Any question about that? Now the quiz A questions are not exactly timed, meaning you have to take them within 24 hours. But you have 24 hours to submit your answer. Let me see. So with practice quiz 1A, it starts from July 19th at midnight, and it finishes, well, that's not right. Well, it finishes at July 21. I'm not going to change it, also at midnight. They're supposed to be, oh, that's the answer, sorry. That's when I'm showing you the answers. You're supposed to take this by July 16th. This quiz, because it's the practice quiz, you can take it as early as July 10th. Most of the other quizzes, not the practice quizzes, you have to finish it within 24 hours. Let me go to that. I shouldn't have done the practice quiz because I've got the time constraints different. Here we go. Practice, not practice quiz, quiz 1A has to be done by July 20th. And it starts at 11:59 p.m. July 19th. You must finish it by July 20th at 11:59 p.m. And the same thing with quiz 1B. You can take it anytime from July 19th at 11:59 p.m. It must be finished by July 20th at 11:59 p.m. Once you start that quiz 1B, you only have so many minutes to finish it. And let me go ahead and go in there. So I'll just show you the exact time. It's a time quiz. Not till, there it is. You have 19 minutes to finish this quiz. So when you first start it, you have to get it finished 19 minutes later. The window that you can take the quiz is from 11:59 p.m. July 18th. And I don't know why that's till July 20th at 11:59 p.m. Okay, any questions about any of that? All right. I guess we don't need that. Let's talk about the syllabus. If you want to get a hold of me, this tells you my clark.edu email. However, I'm only going to be checking that email probably about twice a week. And some weeks I might only do it once a week because this is the summer, but I'll try and check it twice a week. If you want to get a hold of me, what you should do is contact the Canvas email, the inbox. I'll check this email at least every other day. And I'll try and check it either Saturday or Sunday. So I'll even check it once in the weekend. But I'm not going to check it every day, but I will check it every other day. So if you want a quick response, email me in Canvas, okay? I will check my other email, but I won't be checking it very frequently. This gives you the course information. We are meeting from 5 to about 6:50 p.m. over Zoom. And then the lab will be meeting at 7 to 9:20 p.m. over Zoom. And let me make sure that I'm recording this. I got to stop sharing to see this. Yeah, I am recording. If ever you see I'm not recording, please let me know, because when I'm sharing my screen, it's hard to see that I'm actually recording. So if I'm not sharing or not recording, just let me know, because it's hard to do. Another thing is that Zoom has a whole bunch of features to it, like chat, emoticons, symbols, and you need two instructors to be able to do everything that you can do in Zoom. So I'm not going to be using the chat session or the emoticons or the symbols. And I'm sorry if you don't like it, but when I share my screen, if you give a chat, I won't see it. So that's why I don't use the chat. Let me see if anyone's used the chat. Nobody's used it yet. So just let you know, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat. So if you have a question, don't send it by chat. Please ask. And your microphone is muted when you log in. So you need to go up and unmute your microphone. And hopefully you guys know how to do that. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that. When I'm sharing my screen, I don't see how to do that. There it is. On the bottom left, you have a button for mute. You need to click on that. And there, I just muted myself, which doesn't do you any good, but let me share my screen again. All right. I do have an office, however, I'm going to be teaching online, so it's doubtful I'll ever be on campus this term. Office hours, let's make it or by arrangement online. The easiest time to do it is either during the lab or after the lab. Okay, we can just wait. If you want it to be private, we can wait until all other students log out of the lab, and then we can have a private Zoom session, or we can set up a time online. Information about textbook materials and other resources. There are some optional textbooks that you can get. And let me state that Canvas is a very good resource material for you. Canvas website. I'll let you read about the course description, the course outline, outcomes, course policies and suggestions. Let me briefly go through this. If you're sick, contact me and I will try and help you keep on track in this online class. Please contact me prior to the due date to make arrangements for any late work. If you contact me after the assignment is due, I may not accept the assignment. Preparation for class. Consult the schedule. It's at the bottom of the syllabus. Read the material before class and obviously before the exams. You'll note that this class will be very busy, especially in the summertime, where we have a truncated schedule. Instead of finishing in 10 or 11 weeks, we're going to finish in the summer in 8 weeks. And so we're going to be moving very rapidly this summer. Please allow yourself the allotted time you need to get the material done and to study for the material. Attendance is recommended, but it is not required. If you have a question and you're attending, you can ask it immediately and get an answer immediately. If you send it by email, it will take me several hours or at least a day to respond. This class will be totally online, both the lecture and the lab, as well as the exams. You have only 24 hours to take the quiz. If you miss a quiz, you may not be able to make it up. If you know you're going to miss the quiz, let me know in advance and I will make arrangements for you to take the quiz. Read about student responsibilities. You should know when assignments are due. They are on Canvas, meaning the lab module tells you And then the calendar also tells you. Let me see if I can figure out how to get the calendar. That's not it. Let's go to the dashboard. So right there, it's telling you some assignments that are coming up. And you can click on that to view the calendar. All right. Any question about any of that? You should keep all your materials until the final grade for the class is given. You must abide by student code of conduct, especially as it applies to academic honesty. Cheating, plagiarism, and all of that is not tolerated and will result in a 0 for that assignment. All interactions, including student to student, student to instructor, and instructor to student, should be cordial, businesslike, and professional. That includes all communications. Now that's your responsibilities. Here's my responsibilities. I will try to respond to Canvas emails within 48 hours. And that's Canvas emails. If you respond an email on clark.edu, it'll be about a half a week before I respond. I will try to have assignments graded within a week of the due date. Note that big assignments will require additional time. A big assignment takes me time to grade each assignment. And if it's only 10 minutes for each student, and there's 20 students, you do the math. What is that, 200 minutes? Is that right? 20 times 10, yeah, 200. So that's over 2 hours. It's over 3 hours. All right. Let me tell you that the labs are graded 2 times. The first time you grade the lab, I will turn it in. I will try and get it graded within a week. The second time you turn it in, I'm not going to guarantee when it will be graded because I will give first priority to the first time a lab is graded. And so for lab 00 and lab 01, by the time of the second grading, the next lab or the next 2 labs for the first grading will already be turned in. And so the priority will be on the first grading. Any question about any of that? Now, why are the labs graded 2 times? Is in this online class, I've decided that the lab is a learning material for you. And so you have 2 attempts to get your answers right in the lab. And the first time it's graded, I will tell you question number 2 or question number 2B is incorrect. And so you can go back and resubmit the lab. Okay, any question about that? You can learn about course withdrawal. Sometimes it's necessary. Be warned that if you do not withdraw from the course and you just stop showing up, you will get the grade you earn. And that will probably be an F because you won't be taking the final. So if you withdraw, make sure you go in and enter a W for the course. Late assignments, I do accept late assignments, but there is a penalty. The first day that the assignment is late, the assignment will receive a 25% penalty. After that point, the penalty will be 50%. And I don't think I return assignments really in an online class. I do not accept late assignment during finals week. So don't turn anything in during finals week. So pay attention to when the assignment is due and then turn it in by the due date. Read about student conduct. Mostly do not plagiarize, do not cheat. Cheating very rarely is done on an online class, but if you get together with another student and you like that student's answer, do not just give his words or her words. Put it in quotes and say where you got it from. And you should always do that whenever you're using 3 or more words from somebody else. Put it in quotes and say where you got it from. Otherwise, it is plagiarizing. And if I find plagiarizing, you get 0 on that assignment. Any question about any of that? All right, I'll let you read about etiquette for Zoom. Suggested study methods. This class is going to be very challenging. You're going to be learning a whole bunch of new vocabulary, many new concepts. Several assignments will be assigned during the same week. You may feel stressed, especially in the middle of the term. This is normal. Okay? Please understand the commitment for taking this class. You will be spending at least 3 hours of lecture per week, 4 hours of Zoom time for a lab each week, for a total of 7 hours per week. And you can expect to work on microbiology for 14 hours of time outside of the class. So that's a total of 21 hours per week for microbiology. If you have external responsibilities that prevent you from spending sufficient time on this class, it may be wise to take this class during another quarter when you'll have more time to take the class. Now, with that said, I don't want any student to drop, but it would be better if you don't have time for the class this term to take the class during the term when you have time to spend on the class. Okay? And some students, all they need to do is to put in the time, and then they can easily get a good grade in the class. I know because there was a student who I was friends with, meaning she wasn't my student. She was actually not even taking my class. She was having trouble with anatomy and physiology. And I talked to her and I said, well, you're having trouble with just anatomy and physiology and you want to be a nurse. And I said, well, why don't you just take one class, anatomy and physiology, and that's the only class you take next term, and then retake the anatomy and physiology and spend all of your time learning the material for anatomy and physiology. And she did that, and she got an A in the anatomy and physiology. I don't remember what she was getting, either a D or a C in anatomy and physiology. And a C, if you don't know, isn't good enough. So some students, all you need to do is to spend the correct amount of time, and then you'll do good on these classes. And microbiology is one of those time-intensive classes. And she was able to pass anatomy and physiology by taking my suggestion. She became a nurse and is a really good nurse now. Here's some suggestions to help you study. Find what works for you. Take manageable chunks of material and work on chunks. If you study too much material, you'll not learn it all. And it'll just, I don't know, go past your brain. Unless you're brilliant, trying to learn too much at once can be counterproductive. Use concept mapping, be organized. We're going to have several concurrent assignments, so be organized. Use 10 to 15 minutes before class to skim both the previous class notes and the upcoming class to get ready for it. This will help you remember where we left off and will help you get into the proper mindset for the class. Come to class, it sounds simple, but many instructors, including myself, can tell you that there's a strong correlation between attendance and grades. Obviously, quizzes will be on material that is covered in the lecture. Another thing is to come to class and have the right attitude. If you have a good attitude, I don't know what I'd say, an attitude trying to learn, trying to work with me, then it really helps. If you come to class with a bad attitude, you're going to hate the class and you're not going to do well. Listen in class, it sounds stupid, but many of us tune out the lectures. Maybe you're too busy taking notes, and so you're not listening to what's discussed. You should really listen to what's discussed and take notes at the same time. And then go back over your notes after the class ends or anytime before a day later. Go over your notes and then add to your notes. The best way to learn material is to learn from your own notes. And you need to go over your notes within a day because short-term memory will go away within a day's time. And so if you want to add any material to your notes, you have to go over your notes within a day. Any questions about any of that? Try active strategies like forming a study group. You actually get extra credit if you do that. We'll talk about that in week 2. Quiz each other. One of the best ways to learn is actually to teach. Okay. Use concept mapping. Find out how you learn. This can help you there. All right, any questions about any of that? If not, let's turn on to the grading. Plagiarism quiz is worth 20 points. You may take it 5 times. So if you don't get 100% the first time, just take it again. I've never had a student take it more than 3 times, but you do need to get 100% on this plagiarism quiz. If you don't get 100%, then you'll get 0 on the infectious disease research project, which is worth 100 points. There will be 5 quizzes and they're worth 75 points each, but the lowest quiz will be dropped. So only 4 quizzes count, 75 points for 300 points total. The quizzes will be both multiple choice questions and short answer or essay. The short answer and essay questions will be on quiz A, and then quiz B will be multiple choice. The multiple choice quizzes require Respondus Lockdown Browser. There will be a lab for each lab. Those are worth 50 points. So that's about 5 points for each lab. There's a lecture worksheet for about 1 for each lesson. That's 25 points total. Each lab and each lecture have a worksheet, and it's due the Saturday after that lab or lesson. There's an identification of unknown bacteria assignment that's in the lab worth 75 points. We'll talk more about that when we discuss that project. There will be an infectious disease research project, also a lab project that's worth 100 points. We'll talk more about that when we talk about that project. There will be a cumulative final exam. It's worth 50 points. It will have both multiple choice and fill in blank questions. Most of them are multiple choice. I think there's about 5 fill in the blank questions. About 20% of the multiple choice final, the final questions will come from the lab and the identification of your unknown. About 50% of the questions will come from the material from the last quiz, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Let's go into it now. Meaning you'll be quizzed throughout the term, but you won't be quizzed on chapters 13, chapters 14, and it's only chapters 13 and 14. I thought lab 9 was in there as well. Oh, you're not being quizzed on the unknown project. That's what it was. And so 50% of the questions will be from the final, will be on the last material, chapter 13, chapter 14, and the unknown project. Any question about any of that? All right. About 30% of the material will come from the beginning of the term, which you have been quizzed on that material for the final. You must take the final during the designated 24-hour time period. Once again, it is graded. You can finish the essay and short answer quiz within 24 hours, but it must be submitted within 24 hours. And then once you start the multiple choice questions, that part of the quiz is timed, and it'll be 1 minute for each question, and then plus some extra minutes at the end. And you can look up exactly how long it is on the final, the link for the final. All right, so this tells you the breakdown of the points. 20 points for the plagiarism quiz, 300 points for the quizzes, the lab assignments, 50 points, identification of the unknown, 75 points, the infectious disease project, 100 points. The lecture worksheets are worth 25 points. The final, 150 points, for a total of 720 points. Any question about any of that? If not, the extra credit, I do give that. I already told you 2 extra credit assignments. There will be extra credit work you can do for a total of 20 points. Extra credit. The grading scale follows this. Greater than 92% is an A. Greater than 90% is an A minus. Greater than 88% is a B plus. Greater than 82% a B, etc. Note the Canvas does give you a grade, but its grading scale is slightly different than that. So the grade in Canvas may be off. Okay. I'll let you read about question review and written corrections. I'll let you read about microscope use in the virtual labs. You should look into the support services for students. Clark College gives you a lot of resources that are available to you, such as counseling, a health center, tutoring services, disability support services, the Canal Library, computer resource labs. And then students who are having trouble with getting enough groceries to eat, you can read about item number 7 here. What do I want to talk about any of this? I have not gone in to look to see if there's a tutor for microbiology, but generally most terms do have a tutor for microbiology. So usually there's a tutor available to answer your questions. All right, any questions about any of that? I'll let you read about non-discrimination policy, school emergency procedures, safety information for students and physicians. As I mentioned, that's really not a concern because everything we'll be doing will be online. Some words and advice and comfort. I'm a little bit long on talking about the syllabus, so I'm going to let you read about that. But understand that teachers are here for your benefit. You don't even need a teacher. You can learn the material without a teacher. However, students generally find it easier to learn the material when there's a teacher, and that's why we have teachers. And I'm here to help you. Please understand that's my #1 goal, to help you. So if you have any problems, complaints, or concerns, let's discuss it. You can either do it in the Zoom session, we can do it in a private Zoom session, or if you don't want to talk to me, send me an email in Canvas. You must follow the laboratory safety rules, even though you're not going to come into the microbiology lab. You are going to be learning about the safety rules. We'll talk more about that when we come to the lab. All right, I think that's it for the syllabus. Now let's go on to the schedule. This is the tentative schedule for the summer. We're supposed to talk about technology, which I've already kind of done, covered the syllabus, went through tips for success, and we'll now go into chapter 1, the microbial world and you. It does include part of chapter 10, the classification of microorganisms. If you have the current edition of the Clark College textbook, it will be pages 264 to 272 in chapter 10. Okay, any question about any of that? So on the left is the lecture topics, on the right, the laboratory topics. I got the quizzes highlighted in yellow, some assignments in blue. Please note that most lecture and labs have a worksheet that is due at 11:59 p.m. Saturday of the week of the lesson. These due dates are not shown on the schedule. The exception is the exceptions tend to be shown on the schedule. Like one right off the bat is the first lab assignment. I'll talk about that more in the lab. Is due at 8 a.m. Friday morning. I'm going to be taking attendance from this first lab assignment. That's lab 00. And you must submit this by 8 a.m. Friday morning, or I will assume that you have signed up for the class and are not showing up. And then I will drop you. Okay, meaning I have to drop students by Friday, I think at 5 p.m. And so turn in your assignment by Friday at 8 a.m. so that I can make sure that you're in attendance. Okay? Any question about any of that? All right. If not, let's move on to lesson 1. Microbiology, Biology 260, Chapter 1, the microbial world. And we'll also talk about Chapter 10, the classification of microorganisms, which is found in the current version of the textbook. And this is the Clark College textbook, page 272 to 281, for the classification of microorganisms. In the previous version of the textbook was on page 264 to 272. I usually give you a slide telling you the major goals of the lesson, as well as a rough outline. So know the terms. What is a microbe? What's a microorganism? What's a germ? What's a pathogenic organism? What's a parasitic organism? What's the microbiota? What's an infectious disease? What's an emerging infectious disease? What's pasteurization? What's Koch's postulates? And Koch's postulates we'll be talking about 3 times in the class. So this is a topic we'll be coming to time and time again. And you can find questions on Koch's postulates on any of the quizzes, especially the first quiz, the quiz where we talk about it the second and the third time, as well as the final. And that's true for any topic that we come to time and time again. There are a few, like Koch's postulates, endospores, the Gram stain. We'll then talk about a brief history of microbiology and the importance of microbes. Any question about any of that? Well, let's begin by talking about the importance of microbes. How important are microbes to humans and to the environment? Well, here we're looking at the nitrogen cycle. And we can say nitrogen starts in the air and the atmosphere as N2. Well, that nitrogen can be fixed by bacteria and archaea and made into an organic chemical compound, such as an amino group. We'll talk more about amino groups later in the term. And then that organic compound can be decomposed when the cell dies. And it can be decomposed by bacteria, archaea, and fungi. And the organic ammonia or nitrogen can be converted into ammonia, which can be converted into ammonium ions. So if you have ammonia around and it comes into contact with water, you'll have ammonia, ammonium, as well as ammonia. Any question about any of that? You know, green plants can use ammonia, but they don't like it. And if you get too much ammonia on the green plant, it'll start to burn the plant and eventually kill it. The ammonia or ammonium can be converted by bacteria and archaea into the compound nitrite, NO2 with a negative charge. Nitrite can be converted by bacteria into nitrates. That's NO3 with a negative charge. Nitrate is the form of nitrogen that green plants like. You look at any fertilizer, they'll have nitrates in the fertilizer. And then green plants can convert that nitrogen into an organic compound. And then most organisms get their nitrogen from eating green plants, and they get it in the organic compound of the green plant. Any question about any of that? All right. And then to end this, the organic compounds can be decomposed back into nitrate. And then the nitrates can be converted into nitrogen in the atmosphere by both bacteria and archaea. How important are microbes in our lives and in the planet? Well, if we didn't have microbes, this step, this step, this step, this step, this step, this step, and that step of the nitrogen cycle would not happen. And you'll notice that that's most of the steps of the nitrogen cycle. So the nitrogen cycle is happening because of microbes in the environment. Microbes are breaking down one form of nitrogen and converting it into another form, running the nitrogen cycle. All right, any question about that? So the nitrogen cycle is happening because of microbes. And if there weren't microbes, what would happen? Well, you'd have all this dead matter accumulating on the forest floor, and it would never decompose because most of the decomposition is by bacteria, archaea, and fungi, which are microbes. There are some other decomposers. Does anybody know a decomposer that's not a microbe? Come on, somebody's got to know this. I'll give you a hint. It's a fungi. All right, mushrooms are a decomposer. Is there anyone there?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for answering. Another way that microbes are important in the ecosystem is that microbes can obtain nutrients from rocks, and that's only some microbes, not all microbes. And these microbes can literally break down the rocks, leading to the formation of soil. This is not the main way that soil gets made, but a significant amount of soil, 10 to 20%, depending on where you are, of the soil gets made by microbes. The way soil gets made is by erosion from wind and water, wearing down the rocks and making soil. This graph is showing you the oxygen levels during Earth's history. And as you notice, today we have oxygen around 21%, but in the past we had less oxygen. And go back far enough, in the Earth's atmosphere, we had no oxygen. So over 2.7 billion years ago, there was no oxygen in the Earth's soil or in the Earth's atmosphere. So what happened to bring about oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere? Does anyone know? What made oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere? Brought it to 21%. Nobody knows. In the first 2 billion years of Earth's history, there was no oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. Oxygen first started to occur in the atmosphere when we had microbes engaging in photosynthesis and making oxygen as a byproduct. And then that oxygen escaped from the plant and from the water and then joined the air. And that eventually gave rise to this level of oxygen here, which was enough for green plants to evolve, meaning this much oxygen protects UV light on the planet of the Earth, the surface, meaning the soil and that, And then green plants evolved, and they were capable of living on land. And together, green plants and microbes are responsible for the Earth having 21% oxygen. And microbes make up half of that 21% oxygen, meaning half of the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere is because of microbes. The other half is from green plants. Any question about any of that? All right, so we needed oxygen in the atmosphere for the evolution of plants and animals to occur. Without oxygen in the atmosphere, UV light would have hit the Earth and killed off any living samples because DNA is susceptible to damage by UV light. Any question about any of that? So microbes are highly important to the planet. Here we're looking at a sewage treatment plant, and humans obviously responsible for generating the waste in the water that comes from the water flushing down your toilets and running down your sinks. So we generate the waste and we break it down, right? That's what this structure is here for, to break down the waste. So humans break it down, right? That's a question. It's either yes or no. Humans break down the wastewater garbage, the wastewater in the wastewater treatment plant.
The facilities do.
That's correct. Um, Humans do not break down the sewage in the sewage treatment plant. It's actually microbes that break down the sewage. Humans only build the structure and then put in the water and the wastewater, and then the microbes break down the sewage. So the important part is microorganisms are important in many aspects of our life, and they're important in recycling nutrients on the planet. I didn't quite talk about that, but nitrogen is a nutrient and it's cycling because of microbes. That's true for other nutrients as well. What else I want to say? Some microorganisms are extremely important to humans and then for the planet. If you didn't have microorganisms breaking down waste, when a tree would die, it would just stay there and all the nutrients would be locked up in that tree, not available for other living organisms. With microorganisms, they can break down that tree, release the nutrients, and make the nutrients available to other organisms. For humans, it could be that the microbe just breaks down the, I don't know, like sugar, lactose, and yogurt, and then we consume the yogurt and get the nutrients from the yogurt. Any question about any of that? All right, if there's no questions, let's stop here and I will continue. Oh, wait a minute. This is the summer. I don't think I have the time right here. Yes, I do. So this class goes to 6:50. So let's go on for, 20, 25 more minutes. All right, let's talk a little bit about microorganisms. We will use the term microorganism and microbe synonymously. These are organisms which are too small to be seen with the unaided eye. And generally, a microbe is a microorganism, and a microorganism is a microbe. But there is maybe an exception, and that is if we're talking about viruses and prions, we do call them a microbe. But viruses and prions are not organisms. So you really shouldn't call them a microorganism. They're not an organism because they don't have cells, and they're also extremely small. So that is one time when we use the term microbe. And I will not use the term microorganism because although they are microscopic, they don't have cells attached to them. And so I'm going to just avoid the question on whether these are alive or not. I'm talking about viruses and prions. And we'll come back to that topic when we're talking about it in the lab. But with this I guess garden, if you have lots of a border, then you have microorganisms. But if they're cellular, well, yeah, they're a microbe if they're cellular. The thing is that some microbes are not organisms. And that's a virus and a prion. They are special because viruses and prions are not organisms. Prions don't have DNA. Viruses do have a genome, but that genome may be DNA or RNA. And they're not cellular. All other microbes are cellular, like bacteria, archaea, yeast, molds, protozoans, some algae. If they're cellular, they are a microbe. These are organisms which are too small to be seen with the unaided eye. They're single-celled. They can take many shapes and sizes. They're almost everywhere. And so we go around talking about them as the ubiquity of microorganisms, meaning that microorganisms are everywhere, so they are ubiquitous. They play beneficial roles in numerous processes, such as sewage degradation, the making of oxygen on the planet Earth, the making of soils, and the recycling of nutrients from one place on the Earth to another. Any question about any of that?
So the viruses and the prions are not cellular, correct?
Correct. They are not cellular.
Okay, thank you.
Microorganisms are numerically the most abundant life forms on the planet Earth. Now, I briefly talked about a cell and I never defined it. So let's talk about what is a cell. A cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all organisms. It's a highly organized compartment bounded by a thin, flexible membrane that we call the plasma membrane. All cells contain three components. They contain a plasma membrane, they contain cytoplasm, and they contain DNA, which serves as the cell's genome. Any question about any of that? All right. When we're looking at the different pictures shown of the planet Earth, where would you not find microbes? In these pictures, where would you not find microbes? And we're going to talk about 1 inch of sand, 1 inch of soil, 1 inch of water, which would be 1 cubic inch.
Nowhere.
The person, the cat, the pond. There is one place where you do not find microorganisms. You do find it here in the water, on the rocks and the plants. You do find it in the ocean. You also find it in the atmosphere above the ocean. You have to go, well, let's just say you can find microbes floating around on the air currents up to about 1 mile high. So you do find microbes in the atmosphere. You do find them in the ground, and you find them underground. You can find microbes down about 1 mile. And then beyond that, you don't find microbes. How did these microbes get here? Well, they may have gotten there when the soil was forming and making layers. It's also possible that the roots from a tree brought the microbes down. All right, we already said you can find microbes everywhere here. How about in the desert? Where would you not find microbes in the desert? Nobody's going to take a guess. It's a trick question. You'd find microbes of every inch of soil, of every inch of air, up to about 1 mile high. Where in this picture would you not find microbes? And I'll tell you, this is a volcanic vent. That's steam coming out. The red stuff is lava. There's rocks. No idea what this is here. Nobody's going to take a guess. You guys are not very...
You'd find them everywhere, right?
No, you would not find microbes in one place in this picture here. See this lava, the magma? It's red hot. That's too hot for microbes to live. So any microbe that would fall in here would die. Okay? But everywhere else on the rocks, I don't know if that's soil or not, and in the air, you'd find microbes in every inch. You do find microbes almost everywhere, but you would not find it on hot magma that we call lava. And there we see it there, where we find microbes. So where is everywhere? Any environment where microorganisms are found is everywhere. That's on the land and in the water, in the atmosphere up about 1 mile, subsurface in the land and under the ocean. You go down about 1 mile and you can still find microbes in the soil or under the bottom of the ocean, which would be, I don't know, in the soil of the ocean. You go down 1 mile and still find microbes. You do find microbes on plants and animals, and we'll talk about that later. Microbes are essentially everywhere. They are important for the planet. Without microbes, we would not have liquid water. Temperatures are currently between 20 and 120 degrees Celsius. That's a -4 degrees Fahrenheit to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Microbes are important for that. And outside of this range, you do not find microbes, meaning over 120 degrees Celsius, you do not find microbes. Below a -20 degrees Celsius, you do not find microbes which are metabolically active. You might find a microbe, but it would be frozen and inactive, metabolically inactive. Okay. Any question about that? All right. So this is a guessing game. Microbes are numerically the most abundant life form on the planet Earth. How many microorganisms are there? Well, these are all prokaryote organisms. We're not going to discuss this, but it's a tremendous number on the planet. How many microorganisms are there in 1 gram of soil? Come on, somebody. All you have to do is read. There are about 10 to the 8th microorganisms in 1 gram of soil. This does depend a little bit on how moist the soil is and how much organic matter is around. The more organic matter you have and the more moisture you have in the soil, the more microorganisms you'd have. And then the less moisture you have, let's go here in the desert, the less moisture you have, as well as less organic matter around, the less you have of microorganisms. Did I mention that at minus 20 degrees Celsius, you can find a microorganism. However, the microorganism will be frozen and will not be metabolically active. How many microorganisms are there in the soil? Around 1 times 10 to the 8th cells. How many microorganisms are in 1 milliliter of ocean water? 1 milliliter of ocean water is very close to 1 gram of ocean water. Do you have more or less microbes in ocean water compared to 1 gram of soil?
More.
That's a good guess, but actually the oceans are a desert part of the planet, meaning they are a desert because they have very little nutrients. If there's not much nutrients around, you can't have very many microorganisms grow. And so, no, there are fewer microorganisms in the ocean water than there are in 1 gram of soil. How about 1 gram of human feces? Do you have more or less microbes in 1 gram of human feces compared to 10 to the 8th on the human foot? Come on, somebody's got to know this. This is so simple, I wasn't going to answer. Nobody's going to guess, huh?
More?
Yes, there's more microbes in 1 gram of human feces than there is in 1 gram of soil. This is particularly true if the human feces is very moist and fresh. And obviously there's more microbes on a human being than there are in 1 gram of soil. And on the entire earth, we'll talk about that number in a minute. So ocean water has only about 1 times 10 to the 6 microbes per gram of ocean water. Soil, about 1 times 10 to the 8th. If it's very moist and very high in organic matter, it'll probably have a little more than this. But if it's dry, very little moisture, very little organic matter, it'll be less than this. 1 gram of human feces, if it's dry, you only have about 1 times 10 to the 6 microorganisms in it. And I'm talking about very dry, like somebody went to the bathroom in the desert. But if it's very fresh, you have about 1 times 10 to the 11th microorganisms in human feces. In fact, there are so many microbes in human feces that the fecal weight is 55% weight of microbe, or weight of microbes, meaning 55% of the wet weight of a feces is microbes. Just something to think about the next time you use the toilet. Most of that is microbes. In one human, we find 3.8 times 10 to the 13 microorganisms living on and in the human, an astounding number. If you don't know, the human population is something like a little less than 8 billion. So that would be 8 times 10 to the 9th. Much smaller than the number of microbes on one human. For the entire population, I've got the human population. It's getting closer to 8 billion now, but it used to be 7 billion. And how many microbes do we find on the entire Earth? It's 1 nonillion. That's 1 followed by 30 zeros after it. And I bet you never even heard of a nonillion before. 1 times 10 to the 30th. Any question about any of that? All right. You should realize that some microorganisms cause disease. And if the microbe causes a disease, we call it a pathogenic microbe. So a pathogenic microbe causes disease. And generally, we're only talking about human pathogens in this class. And so we're talking about human diseases. You should realize that most microorganisms do not cause disease. Only a small percentage of microorganisms are pathogenic. Only a small percentage cause human disease. And we're only talking about 2% or less of microbes that we come into contact with are pathogenic. Most microbes are not pathogenic. In fact, some microbes are helpful to us, such as the microbes in our gut. They help us digest our food and help us give us vitamins. I think it's vitamin K and one of the B vitamins, maybe niacin. That is the microbes in our gut which make these vitamins and then make the vitamins available to us, and then we digest the vitamins. Any question about any of that? All right, this chapter is also talking about different terms to discuss microorganisms. And if we're discussing microorganisms, it's important not only to discuss those that are pathogenic versus those that are not, but it's also important to discuss those which are infectious diseases, and those which are inherited diseases. An infectious disease is a disease caused by a microorganism. So all infectious diseases are caused by a microorganism. There is one exception, and that is a nematode infection. You could argue that that's an infectious disease caused by a nematode, which is not a microbe. However, we do treat disease-causing worms, helminths, as a microbe, even though at least the adult is not a microscopic organism. However, the infectious particle for most parasitic worms is a single fertilized egg, and it's only one cell. And so some life cycles of the parasite are microscopic. And then that fertilized egg is important because that's how humans become infected with with certain parasitic worms that like the Tania saginata, the beef tapeworm. You get that by eating, well, we will talk about that later, but you get that by eating inappropriately handled or inappropriately cooked seafood. So that's an infectious disease, a disease caused by a microbe, and it's infectious because the microorganism can infect more than just that one person. When that person becomes infected with the microbe, those microbes can go out of that person and then infect another person. And that's why we call it infectious, because when the disease first starts, infects the first patient, that patient can infect other patients, and therefore it's infectious. This is different from an inherited disease. This is a disease that a child is born with due to the child's genetic makeup. These diseases are not infectious, and they're not passed from one, well, they're not, you cannot spread the disease from one patient to another. From one patient to another, I'm not talking about parent to offspring, but from one patient to another. An inherited disease is not spread, does not spread that way. What's an example of an infectious disease? Come on, somebody tell me an infectious disease.
Staph infection?
Say again, I didn't hear that.
Staph infection?
Yeah, staphylococcal, a staphylococcal infection, like a skin infection. That would be an infectious disease. What's another infectious disease? Come on, people. I'm sure you've heard of
Pneumonia.
infectious diseases. We're living in an epidemic of one, or a pandemic. COVID-19, the flu, colds, those are all examples of infectious diseases. Measles. If you don't know, measles is about the only disease I can think of that is more contagious than COVID-19. An inherited disease. What's an inherited disease? Give me an example of an inherited disease.
Alzheimer's.
Yes, although Alzheimer's is not, strictly speaking, one that a person is born with. You may be born with an increased risk of getting Alzheimer's, but it would not guarantee that you would get Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's is a complex disease. It's not a simple genetic disease. A simple genetic disease would be something like Tay-Sachs syndrome or Down syndrome. And that's a disease that the child was born with. And they will have that disease for the rest of their life because they have the genes that give them that disease. Any question about any of that? And of course, inherited diseases like Tay-Sachs or Down syndrome are not spread from one patient to another. All right, if there's no questions, I'm going to end this here and I will see you at 7 in the lab. Are there any questions? All right, I'm going to say goodbye. I'll see you in the lab at 7.
Thank you.
All right, bye.